Hollywood has always shown women of the Old West as helpless damsels waiting for cowboys to save them. But real history tells a different story. There were killers, thieves, and gunwomen that school books preferred to hide. Some died in shootouts, others in miserable conditions that nobody likes to mention. 20 stories that will change what you thought you knew about that time. Number 1. Belle Starr. You've probably heard of Jesse James and Billy the Kid, but the Old West also had its dangerous women. Belle Starr was one of them, and her story is more complicated than any Western movie could show. Born Myra Maybelle Shirley in Missouri, she grew up in a respectable family, but the Civil War changed everything. She ended up getting involved with well-known outlaws and married twice to men wanted by the law. In Indian Territory, present-day Oklahoma, she ran horse and cattle theft operations while raising her children. In February 1889, 2 days before turning 41, someone lay in wait for her on a road and shot her in the back. The case was never solved. The main suspects? Her own son and a neighbor she had beef with. To this day, no one knows who pulled the trigger. Want to dig deeper into figures like Belle Starr and the outlaws she ran with? I put together a collection of historical dossiers with court records, coroner's reports, and details Hollywood never showed. If you're the kind of person who prefers raw facts over sanitized stories, check the pinned comment. It might surprise you. Number 2. Calamity. Jane. Martha. Jane Cannery was orphaned as a little girl and had to fend for herself in the Old West. She worked as a scout for the Army and carried mail on the Pony Express, jobs that few men could handle. But life was too rough. Alcohol became a crutch, and prostitution showed up as a way to pay the bills. Fame came in a strange way. She put on performances in shows where she would shoot even when she was drunk, and the crowd loved it. Her friendship with Wild Bill Hickok became legend, although no one knows exactly what went on between them. The end came in August 1903. At 51, pneumonia combined with decades of heavy drinking did her in. They found Martha in a room in deplorable conditions, barely able to recognize who was around her. And here's the curious part. Her friends buried her right next to Wild Bill. They say it was a parting joke. Number 3. Pearl Hart did something no other woman had done before in the Old West. Rob a stagecoach. In 1899 in Arizona, she cut her hair, dressed in men's clothes, and went after a passenger coach. Why? She needed money to visit her sick mother in Canada. She managed to take $431, a fortune at the time. But here's the part nobody expected. She and her partner got lost in the desert while trying to get away. The police found them 2 days later, almost dead of thirst. The trial became a national sensation. Newspapers didn't know whether to treat her as a criminal or a hero. After she got out of jail, Pearl simply vanished off the map. She spent decades living quietly as a cook, without anyone knowing who she really was. She died in 1955 at 84, taking with her the secrets of a life Hollywood never managed to tell right. Number 4. Big Nose. Kate. This Hungarian woman came to the United States as a child and ended up in the roughest saloons in Texas and Kansas. Kate wasn't just any brothel girl. She was smart, gutsy, and didn't take crap from anyone. When Doc Holliday, the tubercular dentist who became a legendary gunslinger, got captured and was about to be hanged, Kate didn't think twice. She set the whole jail on fire to get him out. Just like that. The two of them had a stormy relationship for years. She fought, drank, shot when she had to, and even ran her own places in the Old West. The funny thing is how this story ends. While a lot of outlaws died young and violently, Kate outlived all of them. She died in 1940 at 89 in Prescott, Arizona. But life wasn't kind at the end. She went out alone, broke, forgotten by a world she helped build. Number 5. Cattle. Kate. Ellen Watson arrived in Wyoming in 1886 looking for a fresh start. She legally bought land and started raising cattle at a time when powerful ranchers controlled everything in the region. The problem was, she didn't bow down to anyone. The cattle barons didn't like seeing an independent woman doing well. They spread rumors that she stole livestock and ran a brothel. The truth? She simply took calves as payment for services at her ranch. In July 1889, a group of influential ranchers decided to handle it their way. They dragged Ellen and her partner, Jim Averill, to an isolated canyon. No trial, no jury. She was only 28 when she died. None of the killers were convicted. Witnesses disappeared or died mysteriously before the trial. Number 6. Annie Oakley had aim so precise she could hit the tip of a cigarette in her husband's mouth from 30 paces away. Born Phoebe Ann Mosey in 1860, she started shooting at 8 to put food on the table for her poor family. By 15, she was already selling game to restaurants and hotels in Cincinnati. Buffalo Bill hired her for his Wild West show, where she became the biggest attraction for 17 years. Kings and queens across Europe begged to see her perform. The German Kaiser asked her to shoot the ashes off his cigarette, and she nailed it. Years later, when World War I started, Annie joked that she should have aimed a few inches lower. A train accident in 1922 left her partially paralyzed. She died in November 1926 at 66. Her husband, Frank Butler, stopped eating and died 18 days later. Number 7. Rose Dunn, the Rose of Cimarron. She was only 14 when she started helping one of the most dangerous gangs in the Old West. Rose Dunn was born in Oklahoma Territory and soon got involved with the Doolin-Dalton gang, hiding outlaws and bringing supplies to their hideouts. Now here's the most interesting part. Rose was dating George Newcomb, known as Bitter Creek, one of the gang's gunmen. The two seemed inseparable, but when the bounty on his head got too high, she made a decision that shocked everyone. She turned in her own boyfriend to the feds. After that betrayal, Rose disappeared from the criminal life. She married a respected politician and lived quietly for decades. She died in June 1955 at 78, of natural causes, far from that violent world where she started. Number 8. Eleanor Dumont came over from France without a penny and built a gambling empire in the Old West. She opened saloons in Nevada and California at a time when women couldn't even go into those places, let alone own them. She sat at blackjack tables and cleaned out the pockets of miners and cowboys who thought they could beat a woman at cards. Meanwhile, she ran brothels behind the scenes. The nickname Madame Moustache came from the facial hair she developed with age, but nobody dared to mock her to her face. The problem was that Eleanor had a habit that destroyed everything she built. She couldn't stop gambling herself. She lost saloons, lost money, lost everything. In September 1879, at 45, she was found dead from a morphine overdose. The woman who beat hundreds of men at gambling in the end lost to herself. Number 9. Etta Place walked side by side with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid during the most violent years of the Old West. No one knows for sure where she came from. Some say she was a teacher, others bet she worked in brothels. The fact is, she followed the Wild Bunch gang to South America, taking part in bank robberies in Argentina and Bolivia. She used disguises and helped with the heists like any other member. In 1909, Etta simply vanished off the map. There was no arrest, no confirmed death. Decades later, investigators found clues that a woman living under a fake name in Oklahoma might have been her. That woman died in 1966 in her early 90s, taking her secret to the grave. To this day, Etta Place's true identity remains one of the biggest mysteries of the American West. Number 10. Mary Fields was born enslaved in Tennessee and gained her freedom after the Civil War. She moved to Montana and became the first black woman to carry mail for the U.S. Postal Service. She drove her stagecoach armed along dangerous trails, facing bandits and wolves without blinking. She was known for smoking thick cigars, hanging out in saloons, and never backing down from a fight. Locals respected her so much that the town shut down on her birthday. Mary lived to 82, dying in 1914 from liver complications caused by alcohol. At a time when women could barely vote and black people faced brutal segregation, she walked around the Old West armed, doing whatever she pleased. Few figures on the American frontier broke so many rules and lived to tell the tale. Want to dig deeper into figures like Mary Fields and the outlaws and legends of the frontier? I put together a collection of historical dossiers with court records, coroner's reports, and details Hollywood never showed. If you prefer raw facts over sanitized stories, check the pinned comment. It might surprise you. Number 11. Laura Bullion was only 20 when she joined the most wanted gang in the Old West. Born in Alabama, she didn't sit at home waiting while the men did the work. Laura took part in train robberies with Butch Cassidy and the Wild Bunch, and she also forged money and checks for the gang. The law finally caught up with her because of the counterfeit bills. But here's the part not many people know. After serving her time, Laura simply vanished from history. For decades, nobody knew what had happened to the famous Rose of the Wild Bunch. She was alive the whole time, working as a janitor in Memphis, completely anonymous. No neighbor had any idea that quiet old lady had ridden with the most famous outlaws in America. Laura died in December 1961 at 85 of natural causes, taking her memories to the grave. Number 12. Alice Ivers came over from England as a young girl, but it was in the Old West that she built her legend. Known as Poker Alice, she wasn't just good at cards. She was one of the best. She sat at the toughest tables in Deadwood and Sturgis, where cheaters paid dearly for trying to con her. They say her revolver settled any argument over the game. While she was racking up fortunes in poker, she also ran brothels, a common business in those frontier days. The curious detail is that she lived long enough to watch the world completely change around her. She survived shootouts, bankruptcies, and 3 husbands. In the end, it wasn't a bullet or a saloon brawl that took her down. It was gallbladder surgery, followed by pneumonia, in February 1930. She was 79, an English woman who owned the poker tables in the wildest territory in America. Number 13. Lottie Dino. Carlotta Tompkins was born in Warsaw, Kentucky, the daughter of a professional gambler who taught her everything about cards before he died in the Civil War. With no money and no family, she grabbed a deck and went to try her luck. In Texas saloons, Lottie sat at poker tables ruled by armed, dangerous men. They say she never lost an important game. Cowboys and gunslingers bet fortunes trying to beat her, but they walked away with empty pockets. What's wild is how this story ends. The woman who faced outlaws and lived in the Old West underworld simply walked away from that life. She got married, moved to Deming, New Mexico, and became a respectable lady in the community. She died on February 17, 1934, at 89, of natural causes. The neighbors had no idea who she'd been decades earlier. Number 14. Mattie Silks was born in Kansas and built an empire that few men of her time could match. She ran the most expensive brothels in Denver and wasn't afraid of anyone. When a rival tried to take her territory, Mattie handled it the old-fashioned way, with pistols. The duel really happened and became a legend on the streets of Colorado. The craziest part is that she missed her shot and accidentally hit her own lover. Even so, she kept running the business for decades. Politicians and businessmen visited her places, and she knew the secrets of a lot of powerful people. Mattie piled up a sizable fortune at a time when women could barely even have a bank account. She died in January 1929 at 83 of natural causes, sleeping on silk sheets. The Old West had its own rules, and she played them better than most. Number 15. In 1867, Virginia City was one of the richest cities in the United States because of the silver mines. And in the middle of all that miners' chaos, an English woman named Julia Boulette built a small empire. She came to Nevada with nothing, and within a few years she was riding around town in her own carriage. The most powerful men in the area competed for her company. The local firefighters made her an honorary member. When someone was sick, she showed up with medicine and food. On a freezing January morning, they found Julia dead in her bed. The killer took jewelry and furs. A French immigrant was convicted of the crime, but a lot of people doubted he was the real culprit. Some said the killer was someone much more important, someone the town preferred to protect. The truth was buried along with her. Number 16. Belle Cora built an empire behind the scenes in San Francisco during the gold rush. Born Arabella Ryan, she came to California in the 1850s and quickly realized the real money wasn't in the mines. Her establishments catered to politicians, businessmen, and even judges. They say judges handed down favorable decisions after visits to her saloons. Her husband, Charles Cora, was a professional gambler and ended up involved in a shootout that killed a federal marshal in 1855. When a vigilance committee hanged Charles without a formal trial, Belle married him just hours before the execution. She stayed in the business for a few more years, but her health went downhill. She died of pneumonia in February 1862 at just 35. A woman who never held any official position, but who kept the gears of power turning in the wildest city in the West. Number 17. Jenny Rogers wasn't her real name. She was born Leah Fries and built an empire in Denver's brothels in the late 1800s. Her business went head-to-head with Mattie Silks, another famous madam in the area. The two waged a quiet war for clients and territory for years. But here's the part nobody saw coming. Jenny was accused of taking out rivals with poison. No formal conviction ever happened, but the rumors never stopped. Women who threatened her business would simply disappear or die in mysterious ways. She operated for decades without the law being able to prove anything. She died on October 17, 1909, at 67, officially of natural causes. A lot of people at the time thought that was way too convenient. The scandals followed her to the grave, and the name Jenny Rogers ended up known as one of the darkest in Denver's underworld. Number 18. Jenny Stevens was only 16 when she started stealing cattle in Oklahoma Territory, along with her partner, Annie McDougal. The two girls from Missouri decided to live disguised as men to survive in a lawless land, They didn't steal on their own. They had connections to Bill Doolin's gang, one of the most wanted at the time. The press back then nicknamed Jenny Little Britches because of the short pants she wore. In 1895, federal marshals surrounded the two of them's hideout. Jenny tried to escape on horseback, but she was knocked down and captured after an intense chase. The judge sent her to a reformatory in Massachusetts, far from everything she knew. After serving her sentence, she simply vanished from the records. No one knows for sure what happened to her. Some say she changed her name and started over. Others believe she died young, maybe before 25. Number 19. Anna McDoulet, known as Cattle Annie, was born in Kansas, and by 13 she was already living in the criminal underworld. She sold supplies to outlaws hiding in the mountains and took part in cattle theft with her partner, Little Britches. What makes this story interesting is that Annie played both sides. While helping criminals, she also tipped off gangs in exchange for rewards. That double game worked for a while, but it ended when federal marshals captured her while she was still a teenager. After serving time in a reformatory school, Annie disappeared from public life. The impressive detail comes now. She survived all of it and died peacefully in Oklahoma on November 7, 1978, at 95 years old. A girl who got into crime before 14 lived nearly a full century. Number 20. Jo Monahan fooled everyone for decades. She was born Josephine in New York, but ran away pregnant and made a radical decision. She gave up dresses, cut her hair, and became a man. In Idaho, she worked as a cowhand and made a living breaking horses and handling cattle. When thieves showed up, she dealt with them with bullets. Her son grew up believing she was his uncle. No one suspected a thing for years. In January 1904, Jo died of natural causes in Montana. She was 56. It was only when they prepared the body that they discovered the truth. The woman who shot better than many men in the region lived hidden until the end. These 20 stories show a side of the Old West that Hollywood preferred to ignore. Women who killed, betrayed, and survived in brutal territory. They weren't damsels waiting to be rescued. They were truly dangerous, and maybe that's exactly why they were forgotten.